Hi Nick. I've chopped my Zoom thing, so we're stuck with 40 minutes or whatever it is on the sort of free option. So keep it a bit
Uh,
more snappy and which should be probably a bit more edgy, let's say. But yeah, I put this backdrop on because I think it just illustrates just how vile this situation is we're facing. I think there's certain individuals just tip us over the edge, and I think it's quite interesting. I follow some of your discussions as well. Not all of them because you spit them out like
yeah,
nothing on earth. But and good for you. There's a lot to cover, but particularly around Christianity, I can just imagine in one of your podcasts. Look, I give up. I give up with my self-reliant ways, and I'm actually a Christian now. Do a Tommy Robinson on us, but I think that's a bit of something else. But I think the other thing is, I think the perspective. I think I think it's really helpful to catch up with you, Nick, just to think about what has changed in the last month, which is definitely escalating as far as I can gather. And I think it's quite healthy to have a line in the sand.
mm,
But also the big context as well. What strikes me is actually a lot of the things that are happening on the ground in the UK are a bit of a distraction when in fact the big picture is around this sort of have nothing, be happy stuff, which is actually the big issue that um, I think we face. So, and then we've got the migration and England stuff, which really matters to us. So, I guess I'd just like to sort of touch on some of those points. If you could
mm,
kick off, then I can just pick up
sure.
whatever
Let's
after.
let's start on Christianity because this is something that's been opening my eyes
Oh, great.
over the last year or two, and I'd have to say you're probably one of those people that made me start to open my eyes on Christianity.
Wow.
I'm still not a Christian, I
No.
don't think I could ever get my head around in believing in a God and things like that, but that's not what I mean.
Mm.
What I mean is understanding the benefits that Christianity has given this nation and given the West.
Yeah.
I took all that for granted. I never really thought about how that the West was built on the foundation of Christianity. We sort of knew that, but we never acknowledged that. And the conversations we've had made me start thinking about that. And I've been having other discussions with other people about Christianity per se. And I think the reason why Christianity is becoming more is in the middle of a re-emergence in the UK. Pardon me, is because as a nation, as a people, as an individual, we know we're in huge trouble. And
Mm.
what you do when you're in huge trouble, you turn to God. How many times have people said, "Oh, please,
Mm.
God, don't let that person die, my mum die. Please, God, let me get that promotion at work, please." So at times of great stress and danger, we turn to God. And I think that's why Christianity is becoming more popular, especially with the young people, because we're in such dire straits. People are now grasping at straws and hoping for something better.
Yeah.
And that's what religion and that's what good is good at, is giving people hope.
Mm.
Because if you don't have hope, you have nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we in the situation we're in now, where I think 3, 4 times as many young people now call themselves Christians as they
Mm.
did 10, 20 years ago. We have people now online in the press on mainstream media actually saying, yeah, I'm a Christian. We've not had that nearly all my lifetime. Anyone admitting they
Yeah.
were Christian as if it was a dirty thing. It's never been a dirty thing.
Yeah.
So I think this re-emergence can only be a good thing in the
Yeah.
UK and the West in general.
Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. And it's
Um, go on,
yeah.
go. Yeah, you comment on that.
Well, that's really very interesting. I mean, I think Jesus's modus operandi is see how you get on, Nick. Yeah, see how you get
Mm,
on. See how you get on under your own self-reliance, and then you run out of road, which happens to all of us, Nick. It's happened to me. It just so happens. I think in terms of Christianity, I was brought up with a very cynical, embarrassed view of Christianity. But the more difficult situations I've faced, and particularly in the company turnaround world, which is off the planet, sort of difficult, immediate crises, um, then without Christianity, you've got no chance of fixing it. You're going to get wrapped around the axle. You just and actually, I check things from lots of different angles. So I don't say this from a no a wetty Betty sort of Sunday. I mean, the whole thing about sort of Sunday school and all that stuff used to scare the crap out of me. But I think from a really practical perspective, it really matters, and I think we are fundamentally spiritual creatures. We are designed to love God and then to love other people, and without that pivot, Nick, there's a load of things that distract us as men, like
Mm,
pornography, drinking, alcohol, chasing women. There's an endless list of disastrous things and the equivalent for women. So I think it is something I've practically learned that is what keeps me rooted in disastrous situations. And you're absolutely 100% right. It is difficult situations that cause people to question themselves,
mm,
and people do run out of road, which is a very sad situation. To be honest, the only answer to that is to get back to the way we were designed, in my view, which is to have God at the centre from which everything else follows. So yeah, but yeah, the sort of Christians I hang around with, I go to a church in Croydon which is filled in with. I'm the only white person in the congregation, Nick.
mm,
And the pastors are Brazilian and they come from all around the world. They come from war zones and stuff. They're not your average wet vicar. And they
mm,
talk from, I mean, even the early 20. I take advice from the assistant pastors who are 20 years old, and they're very wise people. And, the Bible says there's no wisdom without God. Um, there's lots of, I mean, we could talk for hours, but so I think you're bang on the money. Your observations bang on the money. So, yeah, very interesting. Thanks, Nick.
mm. Another point was what was another point you raised?
I think it's the big picture. So there's something around the distraction of um, migration and stuff, which I'd like to talk to you about and you to
Mm,
share your view on, and the level of Islamification, chaos type stuff, as well as how that fits into the big picture, because we've got this have have nothing be happy thing going on in the
mm,
background, and from my analysis does suggest, and I think it's playing out, that all this migration is just a distraction to achieving what the dystopian hell that we're talking about, CBDCs and all that rubbish. So
mm.
I don't know what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's all mixed together. I I I don't buy into the overarching plan that this is all plans. For the main reason that I worked in government for a decade. I've seen the incompetence.
Yeah,
They couldn't organize the plan even if they wanted to.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's just unintended consequences. And I think what's happening is over many decades now, post Second World War, for many decades, we've lost the ability to be able to run our countries, and we fell into the trap of thinking a country is just an economic zone, and it's
yeah,
all about how much money did that country produce, or GDP. Are we
yeah,
still a rich country? How we need to produce more? We need to produce more. It doesn't matter how we produce it. So let's import millions of low-skilled workers because that will increase the GDP. But it's making everybody unhappy. We're having to bother more money. So the country might be earning more. It's like a household. I might get a pay rise and I live in a house. But if I'm still spending 4 times how much money I'm earning and putting it all on a credit card, yes, I might be looking like I'm wealthy because I've just had the promotion. But no, it's all debt because I'm still spending far too much money. And that's what this country has been doing since World War II. We're spending far too much money. So low skilled immigrants coming in the country cost per individual, it's something like, by the time they retire or get to 80 or something, they cost the state £500,000 each.
yeah,
And that's even if they work, they still
yeah,
cost the state £500,000. Some of them come and never work, but it increases the GDP of the country because more people are here, more people are buying bread, more people are buying pasta, more people are using buses. So it looks like the country is getting richer and richer, but we're not. So governments know this. This isn't, I'm no genius, but the governments know this. But it's like, how did they tackle it? And to tackle it, they have to do something that Thatcher did for like 5, 6 years, which is take on the establishment, make us poorer, have civil strife, have violence. So nobody wants to do what Thatcher did, was take on the unions. I mean, I'm not saying Thatcher was right or wrong. I'm saying that's what Thatcher did. But to end migration, to fix the economy, someone's going to have to do what Thatcher did. and be unpopular
Yeah.
and put up with violence on the streets, but no one is willing to do that. So the only answer is, like an alcoholic, the
Mm.
only answer is I've got to do more of the same, which is killing me. I know it's killing me and killing the country, but I've got to do more of the same. So keep importing more people in. I compare it to a big game of like Jenga or Kaplunk.
Mm.
We keep pulling a brick out of the Jenga tower, and we just hope that all doesn't fall down on our watch. And that's
Yeah.
what every government does. We'll bother more, pull a brick out. We'll do this, pull a brick out. Please don't fall down while I'm in government. Fall down with the next government. And that's what all our governments are doing, a big game of Jenga.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what you said, but I challenge that because I study the psychology on sort of multi levels, Nick, and I've
Mm,
noticed consistency um, across the piece. And I think the financial, you're absolutely right. The financial situation is screwed. I think that to a large degree that's intentional as well, and it's going to escalate with this government. But I think the sort of only answer to that, and I again putting my sort of company turnaround hat on, is absolutely really harsh policies. And democracy is not going to fix that. You cannot fix that through democracy. No
mm,
one, when you've got a situation where you've got winners and losers, Nick, you can't just sort of get people together and get them into sort of kumbaya and sort of all agree to something because you've got winners and losers. You just got confrontation. It's like with Islam, you've got and Christianity, you've got exactly the same situation.
mm,
You've got very little common denominator. So you've got to set your stall out and say, look, this is what I do in a company turnaround situation. I say, look, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. And you move forwards on that basis. Um, but I disagree with you in terms of the big plan because, um, this CBD stuff, CBDC stuff, it's all about totalitarian control, which I
mm,
think has been consistent psychology, all this climate change stuff, intentionally destroying the economy and redistributing wealth. So I think there is a big plan. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. Uh, so um, yeah, and so in terms of migration, um, I'm really concerned about again coming back to the same sort of point. If you've got a group of people who've got fundamentally different interests in it, I mean,
mhm,
a lot of what I do is, whilst I don't go out of my way to be unpopular, right? A lot of what I do is I try to understand what is the common ground and then negotiate from that position. And normally there is. In an organization, the common ground is normally actually the financials because if the company doesn't make money, then you're going to go bust and no one's got a job. And so you figure out how can you fix that and get it back on the road. In the UK, the challenge is a bit different. It's what you were talking about before in a different context, which is, I think, around culture. People are realizing how important culture is. Because again, like you were saying about Christianity, culture really matters. Where you come from, all that stuff becomes very reassuring and very important when the carpet's been pulled away under your feet. So I think there's a real need to define whatever the British culture is, and quite frankly, say to the Islamists, this is it. This is the British culture. And actually, you've then got the other issue, which is the breeding, Islamic breeding program, which is all part of the big plan to sort of take over the UK, to invade and
mm,
destroy our culture. And whilst I haven't thought it through completely, the bloke who actually does make complete sense on this is a guy called Steve Laws. If you have
mm.
you listened to him?
He's just done a video with Liam Tufts that I'm going
Yeah,
to watch over the next few days.
yeah. Have a look at that. I've never come across the bloke, but I'm always interested in robust solutions. And actually, Steve
Mm,
Laws does actually. It's very unpopular, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong,
mm,
but it is actually and it's not particularly racist. It's around. It's just saying, Nick, if we want to have our English culture, we've got to protect it,
mm,
which means, the biggest threat, which is the one that Tommy Robinson goes on about, is being outbred. And, fundamentally, that's going to destroy England because people like you and I are English,
mm,
right? And Steve Laws is very much of the view that, therefore, he's pretty ruthless. And I think this is sort of part of the Restore Britain, Nick Tenconi type thing. Because
mm,
I do think you do need Christian leaders. And one of the downfalls of, I mean, maybe just touch on advance. of the venerable party. He talks about Christian values, but that isn't good enough in my experience. You've actually got to be a Christian. You've actually got to know what that's all about to actually hold this damn thing together. It's too bloody difficult. Too bloody difficult. Ben will get ripped to pieces. He won't last 5 minutes in the heat of the battle. And I know the bloke. I mean, I've met the bloke. I know quite a few. I mean, you're an exception. I really admire your balls, and I think you're a very capable guy. But a lot of uh, the college are sycophants. There's no productive debate, and we're talking. We need to have conversations, Nick, in my view, to sort this stuff out between some really unpopular people like Tommy Robinson and Steve Laws, for example, to actually figure out what are we going to do about protecting the UK culture. What are we going to do about reducing the invasion, reducing the Islamic threat, which is absolutely violent. And just very briefly on the Islamic threat, I think the issue is psychological. Psychological. It's like the left. It's this victim-centric ideology, which is so dangerous, combined with a whole raft of lies around the sort of 72 virgin type, covering up women, blaming women for not wearing anything for being raped. The community leaders saying, look, we can't do anything about it because, it's Allah's will, and this default position. And that actually, if you ever listen to a murderer, because people cannot physically kill people, Nick, naturally. It's not something we can do easily. But if you ever listen to a murderer and why did they kill someone, they always blame somebody else. They never take responsibility. And so, in my view, Islam has enshrined that in it. So I don't think it's a religion. I think it's a political invasion, which is closes ranks around, covers things up, and practically Nadia Whitcomb, whatever her name is, who's in Nottingham, didn't sign up to the rape gang inquiry, for example. I mean, really despicable clan type behaviour. So I think we need to address this head on in a fearless way, and really just say this is what's going to happen. But that will not happen in a democratic way because, again, I don't think you're not going to get people to agree with that. And to be honest, there aren't many people like you and I, to be honest, Nick, with the balls to actually say, look, see something like that through. Or the skill to do it, or the psychological skill, and it's certainly not Ben Habib in my analysis. So,
two things. First of all, with Advance UK, I'm a member of Advance UK. They're too new. They're trying something different. They're trying politics the different way about grassroots. That's what the college is about. Get as many people involved with different experiences to develop policies, and we'll see how that progresses over the next few years. Because we're nowhere near ready yet to do anything. I don't even think we've officially registered as a party yet. We're still in the process, because that can take months and months and months to register as a political party. I think events are going to overtake the political parties. You're right. At the moment, there's, we look around and we go, who's got the courage to do anything? Will the people go along with it? Well, at this moment in time, you're probably right. But we've come a long way in the last 12 months. Yeah. And I think 2 years from now, I think the British people will be in a different position, a place altogether. Half the political parties now are talking about mass deportation. Nobody was talking about it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And after we start talking about that, then it's remigration. Yeah. And I think people individually are changing. The amount of people who have never spoken to me about politics and about immigration, who are now just angry about the lot. And yeah. I've changed the way I talk about it now. I've spent most of my life knowing immigration was a bad thing, even from a kid. From a kid, I knew it was wrong, because I saw my neighborhood change. I saw it become Muslim. I went from seeing no brown faces to seeing lots of brown faces over 20 years growing up. I saw the problems it brought. I saw the anger in the white British people. My family and some of my friends moved out of Manchester for that particular reason, white flight. They said, I'm leaving because I don't want to live next to these people. But my answer was always integration. It's not their fault. They've come from third world countries. We need to give them time. We need to help them. We need to integrate them. And I've got to a stage now where that's never going to work. That's
Yeah.
never going to happen. It's not going to work. The
Yeah.
problem's getting worse and worse and worse. And we're at a stage now where we're fighting for survival. We may be in the foothills of the fight, but mark my words, we're fighting for survival.
Yeah.
Um, and the country's changing. And when you think about it, it's like, I don't even blame the immigrants anymore now. I don't even blame the Islamists. It's like, it's our fault. We've allowed this to happen.
Yeah.
And over the next couple of years, whoever gets in next, I think, will probably look at some form, limited, but some form of mass deportation for criminals, basically, and illegal immigrants. That will open the box then to remigration. And I think maybe 10 years from now, we may be at a stage where we're saying to people, you weren't born here, you're going home.
Yeah.
Now, the question after that is, what do we do about people who were born here?
Yeah.
And what do we do about people who are mixed race?
Yeah.
Now, I've not necessarily got answers for that because I think that's going to require some deep thought. But if you weren't born here, then I'd like you to go home. And if you're a criminal, foreign criminal, we're going to deport you. I think that's the mounting I'm standing on now. No more integration, no more assimilation, no more bending backwards. We need to start going down a road of domination. This is our country, this is our culture, this is our state religion.
Yeah.
We allow you to live here, we allow you to practice parts of your culture and parts of your religion, whether or not we like it or not, we allow that because we're tolerant. So we allow that. But overall, everything else has to stop. And if
Yeah.
you, and I'd also like to deport migrants who criticize the country. So if we have a migrant online going, oh, white people are racist, like, excuse me, you've got a foreign passport, you're going home tomorrow. I think we need to be a lot less tolerant. We need to start becoming intolerant of people who don't like us, our country, our culture.
Yeah. I think, yeah, no, I agree. I think David Starkey said something very interesting, which I picked up on years and years ago, which
Mm,
is the tyranny of tolerance.
mm,
Tolerance is actually a tyranny, Nick. It forces you to believe that things are okay, they're not okay.
mm,
And you look at what's happening in Rotherham, Telford, and goodness knows what else. Notwithstanding, of course, Brits and English white people are bad, but it's not covered up in England. It's
mm,
we're ashamed of these people. We don't protect these people in our communities. We report members of our family, Nick.
mm,
No, we don't take any prisoners. And I think the other thing around what you just said, and I notice this in this church I go to, because I'm not actually in the slightest bit racist, but I'm very anti people. If I get a feeling that they're very anti-British, I'm very anti their culture, if you know what I
mm,
mean. It doesn't sit well with me. But I come back to this church, who are all Christians, and they're from 136 different countries around the world, and that there's I'm proud to be with those people. They're all looking to contribute to they're not invaders. They're not looking to change the culture. They're all
mm.
looking for work, from a very difficult start. A lot of them not wealthy people at all, in the main, really quite poor, but they fit in. So I think it comes back to a lot around Christianity. But
Can I jump in there? This is the problem we're going to have because straight away, if those people in your church weren't born here, I'd like them all to go home, regardless of the Christians, regardless of the taxpayers, regardless of the nice people. I
yeah,
want them all to go home.
yeah,
And this is the problem we're going to have: is that every individual, every British citizen in this country, will all have a different definition of who gets
agree.
to stay,
I
who's
know.
going home.
I
And the
don't think
more
you're
we
wrong.
hear, pardon,
I don't think you're wrong. I don't
yeah,
think you're
and
wrong.
and the more we hear personal stories, the more we're going to go, oh, we can't send them home, and eventually we'll end
I
up
know.
sending no one home
I
because
know.
once you hear their
That's the
personal
Steve.
stories,
You've just described the Steve Laws philosophy, then it.
yeah,
And so it's worth having a listen to that. Um, yeah. So, and I think actually the UK is very good at integration. Now we are actually well. I remember reading The Economist a few years ago that we're very good at bringing people in, but as you say, there's oil and water. We're dealing with oil and water. We're dealing with people who will never integrate, who actually really hate us, who are entitled. They've been brought in under false pretenses. They think they've built the country. They think, um, well, the NGOs are feeding them with all kinds of really, really terrible messages that they can tag onto. And I think as well, these people are very vulnerable to escalating psychology, the sort of Islamic type psychology, which is becoming very prevalent. And I'm concerned when I'm on Twitter primarily because I watch the psychology, and I'm picking up the Islamist psychology around promoting what look like harmless, sort of normal Islamic type people who are claiming victimhood and sort of inflaming things in a very subtle, very clever way, and making blasé statements around tolerance, around, well, they're here, therefore they're British, all these sorts of things, and it's just um, very damaging. And I
It's
think,
tribal warfare, because we're in the middle of a tribal warfare. We're
yeah,
fighting for dominance, power, resources,
yes,
money to run the country. We're in the middle of a tribal war,
yeah,
and only one side can see what's happening. One side, our side, are oblivious to what's going on.
I know. But I think as well, I agree with that. But in the good old days, warfare is all very well, but if it's also the means of fighting that war, Nick, as well.
Mm,
So if you look at what the tools of the I mean, Christianity is about. I'm just coming back to. I'm not. Christianity is about accountability and responsibility, Nick. You and I don't claim victimhood. We get on with it. We go and earn enough money to pay our bills, all that sort of
mm,
stuff. Um, and the flip side of that coin is victimhood and entitlement and all of that sort of stuff. And the other tool in uh, Islam is to protect Islam at all costs using taqiyya. And if
mm,
you can see this enacted all over, I can look at the psychology. It's taqiyya. It's this thing around, well, one of the Muslim leaders in Birmingham said, we're taking over London, no, we're taking over Birmingham. We want to take over the West Midlands type thing. And then
mm.
the very next day, he was on social media talking about Islamophobia. It's like, hold on a minute. You're going to go and stay with someone. You're going to rip the guts out of their place and then say, look, I'm unpopular. What the hell do you expect? It's like, what on earth's going on here? So, um, and I
And
think
that, but that's because he knows he's in a war. He's in a war for dominance.
yes,
He knows that. And
yeah,
he's using our weakness against us. He's using our
I know,
flaws against us.
I know. And this is why I'm talking about fighting with different set of tools, Nick.
Mm,
Because unfortunately, when communication breaks down and you get this sort of cross parallel, not talking to each other type stuff going on, like we've just been talking about, then the only option is violence. And we are a very good fighting nation.
mm,
We are unbelievably good bunch of fighters. And now I'm ready to do whatever is required to save this country.
mm,
Violence is obviously the absolute last option, but unfortunately it's becoming, in the absence of productive dialogue and having a common set of objectives and a common set of tools, Nick, it's the only option. Because if you can't communicate with people who are in your face threatening you,
mm.
or your family, or my girls, or your do you have children? I can't remember.
No.
Yeah. So very much what I do is very much, and in fact, I think a lot of people with kids are absolutely focused on their kids.
Mm,
Unbelievably. I mean, Tommy Robinson talks about it. My everything I do is focused on my kids,
mm.
um, mostly. So it's that there comes a point whereby passive Brits say enough is enough. So I think we have got to create a plan. We've got to get on with it. And if you're not careful, um, we've got to be very unpopular, set out the stall, because otherwise the alternative, pandering to idiots, is fueling the problem. I mean, I'll just give an example of, in a company turnaround perspective, of what happens is basically what you do is you get in a company turnaround, you've got a company which is misaligned it because of the
Mm,
psychology. So, someone's saying why the grass is green. In fact, it's not, it's blue, something like that.
mm,
And there's a reason for that. There's a psychological reason for that. And that takes people's eyes off the ball. And you've got to address that psychology to get things back on track. And in exactly the same way, when you look at the psychology of what's driving the UK, it's around accountability, it's around responsibility, it's around, paying your way. It's about getting off the dole. It's about creating wealth. I don't know. It's all this sort of cult.
Mm,
It's about creating a safe environment for people. All this sort of stuff. Um, and then you look at the alternatives, right? Which is Islam, which is the antithesis, which is covering up women, blaming women for being raped, not wearing enough clothes, endless list of things which are completely different. And you've got to say, while you can, before you lose control, before the
mm,
thing goes bust, this is what we're going to do. This is how we need to do it. And then you need a team to execute it and get on with it. And that's always been my concern around having that group of people. And that group of people to execute it are extremely unpopular people, Nick, because they
mm,
will fly in the face of, like you've got that sort of strength. I can see it in you. There are people like Ant Middleton, Tommy Robinson's another one. No, people like Dominic Cummings, he's a tough nut. These really bizarre, sort of different types of people who get it. They know what's required. They've actually got the balls to see it
mm.
through. But I think if it's a project, we also need the USA to actually underwrite it as well, because I think we probably need US military input to actually execute this, because there's a distinct lack of risk management on the. I read the entire Restore Britain plan around
Mm,
remigration, and there's no mention of risk management. It's some sort of legal utopian document, as
mm,
if everybody's going to go out the country quietly, which they're bloody well not, Nick.
mm. No, I think violence is guaranteed. I don't see a solution to any of our problems without mass violence. How
Yeah,
big the violence is depending on how it's managed. Let's say the next government starts deporting illegal immigrants. That in itself will lead to violence on the streets. Of
yeah,
course, it will.
yeah,
Um, if we don't start deporting illegal immigrants in the next couple of years, there'll be white violence on the streets because white people have had enough now of seeing their country dying.
yeah.
I don't think any government will really do anything until we get to the violence, because up to that point, it's still a game of Jenga. I just hope the tower doesn't fall while I'm in power. But eventually the tower will fall, we will get violence, and then the government then is going to have to act. And then when we have sectarian violence, it'll be, certain areas will be Bangladeshis, other areas will be Pakistanis, other areas will be a collection of Islamists, other areas will be Black Nigerians, others will be Albanians. It's going to be a hodgepodge of gangs, violence, ethnic and sectarian violence.
Yeah.
And then the answer to that, and that's why I want violence sooner rather than later, because the sooner we have it, the smaller it will be. Because once we get that, the white British people will vote in, if we still have democracy, again, that's why I want it sooner. Will
Yeah.
vote in a government who will do the things that need to be done. A little bit like 1939, when a washed up politician that no one liked called Winston Churchill was asked, can you lead the government? Because we're in unprecedented times here now. And that's what will happen. We will have a leader that we probably may not even know of at the moment, or we don't think is capable, will come forward and will take the bull by the horns and start doing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
But it is going to be unpopular, and it's going to lead to violence, and many innocent people will lose their lives. And I'm sorry for that. I'm not praying for violence. I'm just stating I don't see any other solution.
No, I think you're right. I think it's bang on. I put it a slightly different way, but to try to capture what you just said, I think um, our political system is sort of designed for a relatively normal society,
Mm,
a Christian-based society where people are accountable. The ship's pretty good. You just need to basically let people get on and do their stuff. And clearly that's been pretty much destroyed, because whatever it is to be English, whatever it is to be accountable, all that stuff. So therefore, I think, and democracy therefore doesn't really work. It's not going to fix this,
mm,
because as I say, you've got winners and losers. So you're absolutely right. In fact, the thing that Churchill did and made himself really unpopular to kick off with, he didn't pander to Hitler at all. He said,
mm,
no, we're not having this.
mm,
It's exactly, we need that sort of resolve. It's exactly the same with Islam in the UK, to be honest,
mm,
or extreme Islam, whatever you call it, people who actually follow what they should in the book. So I think we do need that sort of strength, and then you need a plan to execute it. But yeah, what's going to happen to get to that point? It is going to reach violence because people are not able to have conversations, Nick. If you and I, right, have got to work, if you and I live next door to each other and we have got such diametrically opposed opinions, and
Mm.
you are threatening me in some way and it affects my children, that's not going to end up well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and, and so, and those might be a whole raft of issues that might upset each other.
Mm.
And so I think we are going to see that. And I think that it's going to be sectarian violence. As you say, it's not English versus everybody else. There'll be rivalry because the Islamists tend to pick on their own first, the people who don't, in their
Mm.
own clans, who don't sort of follow the line. So I think,
Pakistanis hate Bangladeshis.
yeah,
Bangladeshis hate, Indians. The Middle Eastern people hate everybody and hate themselves and hate. I mean, it's we think they're one blob. They're not. The 72 different fractions, and we need to fight all of them. Um, but things are worse than we can imagine because 50 years ago, our democracy worked because we had different British people with different political points of view. So the Labour Party loved the country, but
yeah,
just wanted a different version of the country than the Tories wanted, who loved the
yes,
country as well.
yeah,
We now have large sections of our population who some don't love the country at all, but even if they're ambivalent towards the country, their country is somewhere else. Their country is Bangladesh, their country is Pakistan, their country is Nigeria.
yeah,
They still hold allegiance to foreign countries but live here. And
yeah,
we saw that last month when London councillors went to Bangladesh to stand as MPs in Bangladesh. It's
yeah.
like, what are you doing living in my country
I know.
when all your affiliations, all your love, all your time is spent wanting a better Bangladesh, which is lovely. You need a better Bangladesh because Bangladesh is a crap hole. You need a better Bangladesh, but go live there and do it.
Yeah,
Stop pretending to be British and live here and spending all your time working on a better Bangladesh. Just like the Pakistani MPs in Parliament standing up and saying, we need to support cousin marriage. We need to fund an airport in Pakistan because that's where the people who vote for me, that's where they fly to. They want a better airport in Pakistan that we should fund. It's worse than many people think. This isn't
no.
just about a different vision of the UK. This is about building outposts for
Well, it's a
different
caliphate,
countries.
Nick. It's a caliphate because
Mm.
they don't regard national boundaries. So it's like, how many people can they bring into the UK to increase the caliphate? It's totally off
Yeah.
the planet.
Well, that's part of the problem. But it's worse than that. It's Christian Nigerians are doing exactly the same. So
Yeah,
so Islam is a big problem, but it's more than just Islam. It's a mass migration problem. We need to get to a stage where we say we don't want any migrants here.
yeah,
Go home and tell them the truth. You're not good enough to live with us, so
yeah,
go home. And that should be the line we draw in the sand. And then
yeah.
there's no
And I
confusion
agree.
on what the country wants.
Yeah.
Just like when
Well,
Churchill said, "We're never going to deal with Hitler." He drew the line in the sand, and everybody knew where they stood.
yeah. We've got 1 minute, Nick. 1 minute
Okay.
left. So in a nutshell, how do we look after ourselves? What's our advice to other people? And I hate offering advice, but
Hmm.
the thing I'd share is I think very important to speak out. If
Yeah.
people are upset, it's very important to say what you think, even if that makes you unpopular. And even ultimately, if that gets you in prison, you've got to do that to maintain your sanity. And for me as well, my Christian faith is my rock I stand on. It's the thing that, you know, works. And it's the basis of well-being and,
Hmm.
wisdom as best I can.